Sometimes love is just an old program built on fear of being alone. Joe Dispenza. Before we begin, here's a small ritual. Write in the comments one word that accurately describes your current state. Sign it, and let's get started. We all arrive in this world as blank slates. No opinions, no fears, no shame. Just presence. Just breathe. And in the very first moments, someone is already around us. Someone touches us. Someone looks at us. Someone turns away. Someone speaks with tension in their voice, or says nothing at all. And this is where it begins. The programming. Not with words, but with emotion. The mother who holds you, programs you with her nervous system. If she's afraid, you learn to feel unsafe. If she's cold, you learn to numb. If she's anxious, you absorb that rhythm into your own body. Not because she's bad, but because she's your entire universe. Every person near you becomes a coder. One programs shame, another obedience. Someone plants control, someone else silence. And you, the child, take it all in. Because to survive, you must belong. You think you're learning love, but often you're just learning survival through adaptation. You smile when you're not happy. You hug people you fear. You hide your pain because pain made others uncomfortable. Bit by bit, your real self is buried, and something else grows in its place. Something that looks like you, but isn't. This is how it's always been. 1,000 years ago. And now, no child escapes this. No one grows up without becoming a reflection of the environment they were raised in. We become a mirror of those who surrounded us, not their conscious intentions, but their unconscious wounds. And here's the most disturbing part. Those you love the most are often the ones who programmed you the deepest, not out of cruelty, but because they were still running on their own unprocessed code. Your parents, your siblings, the teacher who praised you only when you performed, the friend who withdrew love when you were too much. They weren't just people, they were emotional programmers. And over time, these emotional codes turn into internal rules. Be quiet. Don't feel. Don't take up space. Please others. Stay small. These are not traits. They're survival strategies, but the child forgets it's a strategy. And as we grow, we think it's just who we are. And that's how the false self is born, not out of malice, but out of necessity. Then we grow up. We get jobs. We build relationships. We say things like, "This is just how I am." But deep down, we feel the tension, the disconnection, the dull ache of something missing. It's not because we failed. It's because we were built on layers of programs we never chose. The very people we still call family, friends, loved ones, might still be feeding those same codes. Not always with bad intentions, but always with consequences. And what's worse, we don't notice because the programming feels like home. But comfort isn't always truth. And love isn't always freedom. The people who shaped us may have also shackled us. And until you see that, you will keep mistaking programming for personality and love for loyalty. But this is just the beginning. You grow up thinking you're becoming independent. You make choices. You build a life. You even rebel. But deep inside, you're still running on old scripts. Invisible lines of emotional code that were written before you had language. Most people never question them because they don't look like commands. They feel like personality, but that's the trap. When a child is told to calm down every time they show emotion, that child grows up thinking they're naturally quiet. When love was given only when you were useful, being helpful becomes your identity. But underneath it is fear. Fear of rejection, fear of being too much, fear of being left alone. You enter adulthood already carrying a suitcase full of programs, not visible to others, not even to yourself, but they're running in the background. They decide what kind of partner you choose, what kind of career you settle for, when to speak and when to stay silent. They decide how much joy you allow and how much pain you suppress. And what's terrifying, these programs often wear familiar faces. Your partner reminds you of your mother. Your boss speaks like your father. Your closest friend triggers the same guilt your sibling used to create in you. You're not building new connections. You're repeating emotional loops, loops that were installed by the people you love. And the more loyalty you have to them, the harder it is to see the harm. You defend their intentions. You say, they did their best. And maybe they did, but that doesn't erase the impact. Good intentions don't cancel bad programming. If someone taught you to betray yourself for love, it doesn't matter if they were kind. The code is still inside you, and that code will sabotage everything you try to build until you name it. But naming it comes at a price. The price of disloyalty, the guilt of betraying your upbringing, the fear of looking ungrateful. That's why most people stay trapped. Not because they want to, but because they think leaving the programming means abandoning the people. But here's the truth. You can honor someone's humanity and still reject their influence. You can love someone and still say, this no longer belongs in me. But to get there, you have to be brutally honest. You have to admit that some of the people who shaped you are still holding you in patterns you never agreed to. And sometimes they're still close, still saying the same things, still treating you like the child they once knew, and you still responding the same way, because the script never changed. And it won't, unless you interrupt it. Most people won't. They'd rather keep the peace, stay quiet, stay liked, stay loyal, even if it costs them their truth. But if you're hearing this, maybe something in you is done. Maybe something in you is tired of playing the same emotional role and ready to ask the most important question. Who am I underneath all this? Because the people you love might not be people. They might be programs. And the moment you see that, the entire game changes. If these words hit something real, subscribe to the channel. This isn't just content. It's a place where we say what most people are afraid to admit. Join the Telegram too. That's where the deeper truth lives, away from the noise. And if you see yourself in this, write in the comments, I no longer run from pain. Let's see how many of us are ready for truth. One of the most dangerous programs is the one that hides inside something sacred: love. Love makes things untouchable. If someone loved you, it becomes almost impossible to question their impact on your psyche. But love is not always freedom, and not every kind of love is safe. Some love suffocates, some manipulates, some demands your silence in exchange for closeness. And when you grow up surrounded by this kind of love, you start believing that real connection always comes with tension, guilt, or suppression. You stop trusting ease. You crave intensity, even if it hurts, because that's what feels like home. And here's the catch. Most of the people who gave you this kind of love didn't mean harm. They were running on their own unresolved patterns. Your mother wasn't trying to install anxiety in you. She was trying to survive her own. Your father wasn't trying to make you feel invisible. He was repeating the emotional absence he once lived in. And yet, impact outweighs intention. If you internalize the message that you're only lovable when you perform, that belief runs your life. You'll overwork, overgive, over-explain, just to feel enough. Not because you choose to, but because the code demands it. Love, in its distorted form, becomes a leash, and the leash is invisible. That's why you stay. That's why you keep returning to relationships that drain you. That's why you feel guilty for wanting space from people who care. You're not weak. You're just still responding to a program that says, to be loved, you must be less of yourself. And you learned that from someone close. This is the emotional prison no one talks about. A prison built out of loyalty, warmth, shared memories. You can hate your job, but you'll stay in a relationship that erodes your soul, just because you once laughed together. That's how deep the program runs. It ties your identity to the emotional world of another person. You stop knowing where they end, and you begin. And if they feel pain, you take it as your fault. If they disapprove, you shrink. If they withdraw, you chase. All of this feels like love, but it's not. It's adaptation. And adaptation always comes with a cost, your truth. But there's a breaking point, a moment when the body starts to rebel, when anxiety grows, when sleep disappears, when even joy feels forced. That's the alarm system. That's your nervous system trying to wake you up, trying to show you something in your life isn't yours. It was given to you, taught to you, wrapped in love, but soaked in fear. To reclaim yourself, you must be willing to question even the purest-looking connections, not because they're evil, but because you're no longer willing to sacrifice your aliveness for the comfort of familiarity. Real love doesn't shrink you. Real love doesn't make you doubt your worth. Real love doesn't ask you to disappear to keep the peace. But here's the paradox. To find that kind of love, you first have to lose the kind that pretended to be it. As you move through life carrying these hidden codes, you start mistaking them for your essence. You say, I'm just not confident, or I've always been sensitive, or that's just my personality. But what if those aren't true traits? What if they're residues? Fragments of someone else's pain you absorbed before you even knew who you were. Carl Jung called it the shadow, the part of you that holds everything you were told not to be. Not because it's bad, but because it made someone uncomfortable. That discomfort was reflected back to you, again and again, until you believed, this part of me is wrong. So you pushed it down. You suppressed your anger, your ambition, your sexuality, your intensity, because expressing it came with punishment, silence, or disapproval. And slowly, the real you was buried under layers of self-rejection. The shadow isn't evil. It's unintegrated. It holds the parts of you that got disconnected. And most of those disconnections happened in relationship with people you loved. When your sadness annoyed them, you learned to fake a smile. When your boundaries made them uncomfortable, you became overly accommodating. When your desires triggered their insecurity, you made yourself small. None of it was conscious, but all of it was internalized. Now, as an adult, you carry a blueprint that keeps repeating, be who they need you to be, not who you are. This is where the most subtle kind of self-abandonment lives. It doesn't scream, it whispers. It shows up in the moment you hesitate before saying what you really think. It shows up in the tension in your body when you have to make a choice that others might not like. It shows up in the fear that if you fully show up, you'll lose connection. And this fear isn't irrational. It was built by years of small moments where being authentic led to emotional pain. That pain became a warning sign. Don't go there. Don't be you. But here's the truth. As long as the shadow stays hidden, it controls your life. Not directly, but through triggers, through relationships that feel like home, but actually replay your wounds, through self-sabotage, through perfectionism, through addictions that mask unmet needs. You think you're making choices, but really, the unhealed parts of you are choosing for you. And yet, the moment you look at your shadow, not to judge it, not to fix it, but simply to witness it, something shifts. The program loses power. You begin to see the difference between what was put into you and what truly belongs to you. You stop confusing love with approval. You stop chasing acceptance from people who benefit from your silence. And for the first time, you ask, what if I'm not broken? What if I've just been edited? The journey isn't about becoming better. It's about becoming whole. And wholeness begins when you stop trying to be good and start reclaiming everything that was pushed into the dark. Real freedom doesn't feel good at first. It feels like loss, like betrayal, like guilt. Because the moment you start stepping out of your old programs, you begin losing the relationships that were built around them. The friend who liked you because you always listened but never spoke up. The partner who felt secure because you never challenged their control. The parent who depended on your obedience to feel in charge. These bonds weren't unconditional. They were built on your compliance. So when you stop complying, something breaks. And that breaking feels wrong, even when it's necessary. This is the paradox no one tells you about healing. It doesn't make you feel better at first. It makes you feel alone. Because as you drop the roles you were trained to play, you realize how many people were only connected to those roles, not to you. That's why growth can feel like grief. You're not just shedding patterns. You're mourning the version of you that kept everyone comfortable. The version that smiled when exhausted, that stayed quiet to avoid conflict, that carried the emotional weight for others just to feel worthy. But if you can stay with the discomfort, something powerful begins to happen. The fake connections fall away. The constant anxiety quiets down. The tension in your body starts to release. Not all at once, not forever, but enough to taste what it means to exist as yourself, without bending. And that taste changes everything. You no longer tolerate being emotionally used. You no longer perform for validation. You no longer confuse peace with silence. You begin choosing differently, not from rebellion, but from clarity. You notice who drains you, and you step back. You hear the old guilt trying to pull you in, and you breathe through it. You stop asking, will they still love me? And start asking, can I love myself if I keep betraying my truth? Because there comes a moment when the pain of staying programmed becomes louder than the fear of walking away. And that moment is sacred. That moment is your return. There's no instant escape from emotional programming, but there are tools that help you see it, question it, and slowly dissolve it. And the first tool is brutal honesty. Ask yourself, as often as possible, is this really me, or is this someone else's voice living inside me? That question alone creates distance between you and the code. Second, body awareness. Programming doesn't just live in thoughts, it lives in the body. Notice who makes your shoulders tense, your stomach tighten, your breath shallow. The body doesn't lie. It remembers who's safe and who's not, even when the mind is still loyal. Third, create emotional space from anyone who constantly drains or manipulates you. That doesn't mean you hate them. It means you value your nervous system more than old contracts based on guilt. Fourth, write down 5 rules you live by. Things like, don't be too loud or keep everyone happy. Then ask, who taught me this? Who benefits if I keep living this way? Fifth, practice saying no. Not with an apology, not with a justification. Just no. Even if it's small. Every time you say no, when you used to say yes, you reclaim a piece of yourself. Sixth, stop explaining your healing. People who are invested in your programming will always question your freedom. Let them. You don't owe anyone a story about why you're choosing peace. 7th, limit exposure to people who treat your growth as a threat. You don't need support from everyone. You need silence from those who want you to stay the same. 8th, let go of the fantasy that one day they'll finally understand you. Maybe they won't, and that's okay. You're not here to be understood by your past. You're here to create a future that doesn't run on survival. 9th, do shadow work. Name the parts of yourself you were taught to hide. Let them speak. Let them move. Let them breathe. You can't become whole by editing yourself. 10th, choose new people. Slowly, intentionally. People who don't need you to shrink, who see you without needing to fix you, who don't call your truth too much. These people exist, but they show up after you've made space for them. Healing isn't about deleting your past. It's about stopping the transmission of old pain into your present. And you do that one choice at a time. You didn't come into this world empty. You came with something sacred, a fire, a spark, a unique emotional frequency that no one else carries. Before anyone taught you how to behave, before anyone told you what was acceptable, you already had your essence, your way of seeing, your way of feeling, your way of moving through the world. That was never a mistake. It was a gift. And the most tragic thing is, we let that gift be silenced. Not all at once, slowly, piece by piece. Through comments like, "Don't be so dramatic. That's not realistic. Be more normal. Stop showing off. You're too sensitive. Don't say that." Each time someone tried to shape you into something easier to digest, you learned to disconnect from what was real inside you. And now, so many adults walk around carrying talents they never use, instincts they don't trust, dreams they buried to avoid rejection. That's not growth. That's loss. But here's the truth. What was given to you at birth is still there, under the conditioning, under the roles, under the fear. And it's your responsibility to bring it forward, not just for you, but for everyone who needs to see what it looks like when a human refuses to shrink. You weren't meant to just survive other people's expectations. You were meant to build, to express, to feel fully, to move through life with your own rhythm. No one has the right to suppress that. Not family, not friends, not partners, no one. And yes, it takes courage. Because standing in your truth might cost you approval, might cost you comfort. But the alternative is even worse. Watching your own life pass by while playing a character written by someone else. You weren't born to be edited. You were born to be embodied. So remember this, every day you have a choice. To build yourself or to let yourself be dismantled. To protect your essence or to abandon it for validation. To trust your fire or to let someone else pour water on it. Don't let anyone take from you what they didn't give you. Your voice, your depth, your clarity, your hunger, your energy. That's yours, and no one gets to touch it unless you allow them. If this speaks to something real in you, subscribe to the channel. There's more like this, and there are others who need to hear it too. Let the algorithm show it to them, and join the Telegram, where we go even deeper, beyond the filters. And if you feel it's time to stop dimming your light, write in the comments, "I accept my shadow." Let this be your first act of truth, and let others see they're not alone.